Hello, welcome back to the Digressor. So, I think I am getting back on track and starting podcasting regularly again, because this now makes 2 episodes in 1 week. I haven't done this since I started. Because remember, I used to do an episode every couple days, like the first month or so. Well, maybe not month, because I would have well over 40. This is my 44th episode. Wow. Yeah, I went from 1 episode a month to now 2 in a week. So I think I'm starting to, now that I'm not posting the videos on YouTube, I'm just cutting out that altogether. It's much easier to do this because that was really a hindrance for the longest time. And had I not done videos from the beginning, I probably would have more episodes, because there's been times where I wanted to do an episode but was like, I don't want to deal with that. But if I didn't have the video part to deal with, I would have probably just recorded one real fast and threw it up on the website. Not thrown it up, but anyway. So the reason I decided to do 2 this week was actually because I wanted to do an episode on 9/11, which I told a friend of mine I was going to do that, and they're like, "Oh, be careful." I was like, yeah, I know. I don't know. I don't know. Even now, I don't know the route I'm going to go with this. I just know I wanted to do an episode about it. I'm thinking, I know I'm going to tell, everyone has their "Where were you that day?" I think I may have told that story already, but I can do it again. I've also been watching, I do this every year. Around this time, I watch documentaries and I watch the raw footage, and I even I even watch conspiracy videos and documentaries. I don't necessarily believe all of them, but I will get in. I think I will get in. There is a couple that I really liked that doesn't go the loose change route, which I liked loose change. I thought it was pretty much nonsense, but I liked the way that the documentary was made. There's 4 or 5 of them, because they did the first one, I think, in 2004, and they basically just threw every conspiracy that they had out in the video, and you can't take it seriously because I don't think the guy's name's Avery, something Avery, and I don't even know if he believed what he was saying, because some of them were outlandish. But then every time he did another one, he cut out a lot of the okay, this one's been debunked, this one's been debunked, and by the last one, it's a lot shorter, and it's okay, here's what happened, and it makes a lot more sense. But I didn't watch the last one. There was a 4th one. I don't think he never. Anyway, there, my favorite one, because a lot of those conspiracy videos, they're trying to say, "Oh, Bush did it. He's part of the one world government, and it's the CIA's covering it all up." That's no. I haven't seen any evidence to say Bush did it or that, all that. My favorite one is called In Plain Sight, and it's basically there's 2 documentaries. One is In Plain Sight, and the another one, there's a society of engineers or something like that, and both of them they take all of the I guess the assumptions out. Here's just the facts, here's the evidence, and we're not gonna say Bush did it. We're not gonna say who. We're not gonna come to any conclusion. We're just gonna say, this is what the evidence says. You make up your mind what you think, and that's how it should be. It shouldn't be like Alex Jones. I've seen a InfoWars. I saw one of the videos a long time ago, back when Obama released his birth certificate, and he made a video showing he had a Photoshop expert, and he downloaded the picture off the website of the the government website where they released it, and then like he like put it in Photoshop, and he's like took it apart, like, see, this is a completely fake birth certificate. It's not even real. And I was like, okay. And then Alex Jones was like, see, this proves that he's part of the one world government. And I was like, what? No, that doesn't. What? It doesn't prove anything. And Sebi is barking. Okay, it's like 5 minutes later. She was barking because reasons. People. Nah. Anyway, so I'm not a 9/11 truther. I know a lot of people get upset if you even say 9/11 conspiracy. You like they dismiss you immediately. Like they won't even listen to what you have to say. Like I'll say so about 95% of what the truthers say is nonsense. But then there's that little bit, and yeah. See, on the conspiracy video that I did, in the conspiracy episode I did, conspiracies, I was gonna cover that, but then I was like, nah, better not. But the more I'm thinking about it, I probably should. I am thinking about doing a second one, because I did say I want to make this into kind of a series within a series. And there was like 3 other conspiracies that I've been looking at that I wanted to talk about. And so I might do a second conspiracies episode, because I do want to go more into detail about the ones that I do think is true. But like, I don't want to make this a conspiracy episode. You know? Okay. So basically, moving past that, my 9/11 story. I was in Texas at the time. I grew up in Texas. First 26 years of my life was in Texas. I'm pretty sure I said that in a previous episode, which means on 9/11 I was in Texas, in a small town called Merkel, Texas. And people, they think I'm making this part up when I say this, but I'm not making this up. On the morning of 9/11, when we found out, I was in U.S. history class. Yeah. I was in U.S. history class when U.S. history was happening. The science teacher walked in, and she said, the World Trade Center has been bombed, because we didn't know everything at the time. And I said, yeah, I know, 93 in the basement. She was like, no, it happened again. She turned on the TV, and then we saw the towers were on fire. And so like a few minutes later, or however long later, we saw the first tower come down live on TV. And so yeah, that was the history lesson for the day. Like obviously the rest of the day was centered around that. But the U.S. history teacher even made a kind of half joking comment that like, this is your U.S. history class for the day. This is U.S. history. You're watching it live. And but yeah, that I remember that. Yeah, that was pretty much all we did the rest of the day, was just watch live coverage. And cause it was, at the time, obviously it was scary, because we didn't know what was going on. And then all of a sudden, oh, the Pentagon, oh, that was hit too. Oh, there's another plane in the air. Where is that going to go? And so like, something that I haven't really told a lot of people, but because I lived in Texas. Okay, backtrack a little. As you might remember, if you were alive back then, or if you're young and weren't alive back then and probably heard, after everything happened, all planes were grounded. Like, there were no planes in the air. Well, commercial planes, because they had to be grounded because, national emergency. President Bush actually lived. He had a ranch. I forgot where in Texas, but it wasn't too far from where I lived. Like, far enough that I never went there, or I never seen it, and probably never would have, but like, close enough that I probably could have. Close enough that we could say, hey, he's practically our neighbor. So that night on 9/11, my sisters and I, like, we were watching the coverage, and another one of my sister and I, we were, she and I actually stepped out on the patio, and we were just sitting down, and we saw a plane in the sky. And there were, on the news, they were like, well, we don't know where President Bush is. He's in an undisclosed location. And here we see a plane in the sky heading in the direction. Well, I don't know if it was heading in the direction of, I think it's Walker Ranch. Is that what the W stands for? I think so. But yeah. So we think we saw Air Force One. And we got excited, like, hey, we know where President Bush is. Obviously, we didn't tell anyone because, well, we told our parents, and they were like, hey, you probably just saw Air Force One. And I was like, what's that? And that's when I found out what Air Force One is, because we knew the president had a ranch in the area, and we knew that all planes were grounded. So we saw a plane in the sky, potentially heading in the direction of the ranch, but we didn't know what Air Force One was. And then our parents told us what is Air Force One, and I was like, oh, okay, well, that was kind of cool. And that's actually pretty much all we watched. Like, we pretty much just watched all the coverage the next week or so, because there was literally nothing else on TV. Like, even on Fox, like, we'd come home from school and watch, like, on Fox, they would show like The Simpsons and That 70s Show, and no, it was just nonstop coverage of Ground Zero and like the cleanup and stuff. Eventually, things obviously went back to normal, but it was just nonstop Ground Zero coverage. And yeah, like, I remember, like, immediately you always hear about there was a sense of unity afterwards, and yes, pretty much like it was pretty much all. Of course, I was in Texas, and they were already patriotic. Why did my phone just light up? They were already patriotic to begin with, but it just got even worse. I'm not exactly patriotic. I know a lot of people are like, why do you hate America? I never said that I did. I'm just not a fan of the government and a lot of the people. But not America itself, just, the people who run it and the people who live there and everything it stands for. And, yeah, that's it. Not the place itself. Yeah. That gets complicated, but yeah, like, I'm not a fan of how patriotic people can be, and I grew up around a lot of, like, the flag wavers who were like, America! I grew up around those people. The people you see, like, decked out in United States flags, like, everything, like, where one has a cape and have a flag shirt and hat, and, yeah. And I grew up with people who put Confederate flags on the back of their pickup, across the rear back window. That's what I grew up around. But that's not what this episode's about. Yeah, so after 9/11 happened, that got worse. And yeah, it was very noticeable. Like, you couldn't avoid it, and I think I got caught up in it a little bit too. It's like, even back then, like, I wasn't really like, yay, America. I was more like, I've always been more interested in, like, England and the UK, and it's because of Disney. I grew up with like 101 Dalmatians and The Great Mouse Detective and like Peter Pan and like all of them. Like they like glamorized London to the point where like that's where I wanted to go. I've always loved that. And then around that time, I was getting into Harry Potter, so like that just like amplified it. Like all my entertainment was like the UK and London and England and all that. And so, and not even they don't even do like that. Like in America, you see like American flags everywhere on every house, and like I said, like people decked out in the American flag, everything. You don't see that really in other countries. I have friends all around the world in like other countries, and even in like the UK and like England and Scotland and Ireland, unless it's like a sporting event or like an Independence Day type thing or something like a national holiday honoring the country, you don't really see people being like that. And even then, it's like not even that bad. I like one of my closest friends, like she lives in Scotland, and like I asked what it like, if it's like that there, and she was like, no, like if somebody here tried doing that with like the Scottish flag, they would just be kind of looked at like they were crazy. So, she's barking again. I don't know why. I will be right back. Yeah, still don't know why she was barking. But okay, so while after I came back, I went ahead and I did the editing of the first two sections of that I had to stop. So those have already been edited and added to the timeline thing, and I already have the theme song added to make it easier when I'm done here. And while those were loading and finalizing whatever, I was on Twitter, and 9/11 was trending, and the reason wasn't because 9/11, but also because the museum was apparently problematic. I didn't know much about the museum or memorial. I knew there was like a waterfall in the footprints of the two buildings, and like I know like what it looks like, and there's like trees everywhere and people's names engraved. Like the people who died, their names are engraved on like, yeah. And I knew there was like a museum, but I didn't know much about it. But apparently the museum is problematic because it's a memorial site and a historical museum at the same time. And so that apparently creates some problems. This article from Huffington Post actually goes into detail because basically they don't add context to like the historical context. It's just like it focuses on that day, which makes sense. It's a 9/11 museum, but like it doesn't add any like context. Like, so what this says is they tried to let's see, trying to find where, I think the creators were trying to avoid politicizing and historicizing 9/11 by really focusing on the day, but it created this highly political and historicizing experience. Amy Sodaro, associate producer of sociology at, I can't pronounce any of these words. This really intense focus on the minutes and hours of 9/11 ends up kind of giving no bigger context, and so avoids all the difficult questions, problems, and issues that 9/11 has raised. So yeah, I'm scrolling down and I see that. Oh wait, where is it? I saw it somewhere. I don't see it anymore. Yeah, the sections of the museum that focus on the political context of the attacks frame terrorism as a simplistic us versus them issue and emphasize Americans' unity and solidarity in the immediate aftermath of 9/11, which is what I was talking about. In addition, there are only brief mentions of the Islamophobic and racist attacks that Muslim Americans, Sheikh, I can pronounce that one, Americans and Americans of Middle Eastern, North African, South Asian descent faced after 9/11. That I do remember. Because, again, Texas. I'm not saying everyone in Texas is racist, just a lot of them are. Again, it's not a blanket statement. I know a lot of people that live in Texas that are strongly against it and who weren't like this, but for the most part, it's a huge reason why I had to get out of there. It was not a good place to live. But especially after 9/11, it was always like extreme anti-Islam and especially Arabic. All Arabs were Muslims and all Muslims were terrorists. All Arabs were terrorists according to them. Obviously, it's not true. And yeah, and it's sad that it has to be said, but I wouldn't even go as far as to say not all Muslims are terrorists, because that makes it sound like a massive majority of it. Like, oh, not all of them, just some of them are. No, not even some. Like, it's okay if the amount that if it was as big a problem as they try to say, then we'd probably all be dead by now. Because what I what I remember being told growing up after all this happened is Muslims are raised to hate Americans, and they train their kids how to kill Americans, and that's all they do. And no, that's not a thing, or at least not on the scale that they try. Maybe like some of the terrorist groups like Al Qaeda and Taliban, maybe they do that, but like not on a massive scale. And I refuse to call Taliban and Al Qaeda Muslim, because I know a lot of Muslims, and us calling them Muslims it'd be like calling the KKK Christian, because the Ku Klux Klan claim to be like, oh, we're a Christian organization, we're not a hate group. No, they're not. They're a hate group, and that's how my Muslim friends view the terrorist groups. They're not Muslim. They hide behind that. They hide behind Islam and say, "Oh, this is what Allah wants." And my Muslim friends are like, "That's not what the Quran says." So, yeah, they're not Muslims. Muslims didn't attack on that day. Terrorists did. They just happen to claim to be Muslim, and they were Arabic. But the fact that they're Arabic doesn't mean that all Arabs are terrorists. Again, it's said that it has to be said. It's just some people don't understand that. And there's people who, like, I see, well, not all the time so much anymore, but I remember, like, if somebody was wearing a turban or a hijab or even a burqa, which you don't really see those. I've seen, okay, I'll say since I moved to San Francisco, I've seen more hijabs than I've ever seen before. I think I've seen one burqa. But back then, after that happened, people were terrified of that. I remember that. There was like a story in France where like hijabs were banned or something. Like people were freaking out because somebody, like a bunch of these Muslim ladies were wearing hijabs, and they were freaking out. Like they shouldn't be allowed to wear that. Yeah, and yeah, it's they're not. Yeah, I shouldn't even have to be said. Yeah, Islamophobia is. Yeah, like I'm. No, I actually. see, one of my Islamic friends, like, she was shocked that because I put stuff like that. I not so much anymore. It's not as common now. I don't see it as often anymore. But I would, I would be vocal about it on Facebook. And one of my Muslim friends, she was confused. She was like, "But you're Christian." I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "Are you thinking of becoming Muslim?" And I was like, "No." And she was like, "Why are you defending Islam?" And I was like, "Because, you know, truth, and people are spreading lies, and here's the truth. I want to share what's actually going on, not spread more lies." And she was like, "That's not very common." And so, yeah. So that how is I was gonna say, how is that relevant to the topic? It is directly linked to the topic because, yeah, I don't know much about how, even though I've been American my whole life, I don't know how Americans viewed Arabs and Muslims before 9/11. Because, to be honest, before 9/11, I never heard of Islam. So I don't know how, okay, I know how it affected their view of them, but I don't know how much it changed. Like, were they already feared? Did it intensify? I don't know. I just hit the mic. It shouldn't have, because the reasons I just said. Kind of moving on. I watched a documentary series on Hulu a couple days ago, and it was really good. It told the story of that day in a way I've never seen before, and I'd seen a lot of documentaries on the subject and on that day, and I thought I knew all there was to know, but no, there's still a lot that I didn't know. It's called 9/11 One Day in America, and it tells the story of that day across 6 episodes. And what I like about it, I've seen a lot. Like I said, I've seen a lot of documentaries. I've seen documentaries that, they go, they tell the whole story from beginning to end. But this, like, really slows down. And, like, I think they're, like, 1-hour episodes, 6 1-hour episodes. And they like the first episode talks about, like, the first plane hitting the building. And, like, it has interviews with, like, a bunch of survivors, and they tell their stories. And then, like, at the end of the first episode, it shows the second plane hitting. But then, like, the second episode, it goes back a little bit, and it tells, like, the whole story of, like, the second plane hitting. And it, like, the firefighters, like, it shows some of them telling their story, and the people inside that survived, they telling their story. People on the ground telling their story. And then the end of the second episode, it shows the first tower coming down. And the third episode, it's the same thing. Like, it goes back and it tells the story. Fourth episode, and yeah, like, it really slows down, and you really see, like, more, like, the impact. And there's a lot of famous footage from that day, and I've seen pretty much all of it. Like, I've seen, like, all the footage on YouTube of that day. But then, like, a lot of the footage, you only see, like the 20 seconds. If it's other than, like, the news footage, like the CNN footage and the ABC footage, you can view, like, that whole day's worth of footage. But then we get, like, the civilian footage. A lot of it's famous and well known. Like the famous footage of, like, the camera was angled up at the building, and you see somebody looking away, and the second plane hits, and he looks up and ducks away. That's a very famous shot. But that's the only part of that clip I've ever seen. That documentary shows, like, a lot of never before seen footage, including that shot leading up to it. The person holding the camera was kind of walking down the sidewalk, the camera facing up, you see the crowds, and then he like stops, and I guess he like sets the camera down, and that person that's in the famous footage, he's kind of like looking around, and then like the second plane hits, and he looks up and backs away, and yeah, and that's just an example. Like there's a lot of the famous footage, and you're only used to like quote unquote the relevant part, but my alarm's going off. Yep, that is my alarm. Okay. Okay, but yeah, that. What was that? Okay, someone just messaged me on Facebook. It's a very good documentary, and I highly recommend it. There were other documentaries. Also, I was going to mention, it does touch on the United 93, Shanksville. That actually gets probably the least amount of coverage. I don't know what... Okay, the Pentagon does get covered, obviously, but that's not even a full episode. That's like... It talks about... It shows the famous footage from that is the only footage, and I'll actually talk about more of it, but I do plan on doing the conspiracy episode, and I will cover that more in that. But yeah, there's only one known footage of the Pentagon attack, even though it makes no sense that... Anyway, I'll get into that in another episode. That's touched on in the documentary series, but they don't really stay on it very long. They don't tell the whole story on that. The main focus of the documentary series is New York, which that's where the main part happened. I even forget that the Pentagon was attacked because they don't... I don't even know how many... I know people died on the Pentagon. I just don't know how many. And that's probably... Actually, hang on. I am curious. Let me unlock my phone. Hey, Google. How many people died in the Pentagon attack?
125. According to Wikipedia, the immediate deaths included 265 on the 4 planes, 2,606 in the World Trade Center and in the surrounding area, and 125 at the Pentagon.
Wow. Of course the people on the plane died. I was talking more about in the building. But yeah, it was a smaller scale attack, kind of. I mean, it wasn't a small scale. I mean, it was the Pentagon, and it was a plane. But Pentagon usually doesn't get that much attention when in documentaries. I've never seen a full documentary just on the Pentagon. And the Shanksville, I was going to say attack, the United 93 going down outside of Shanksville, that actually got more coverage in the documentary than the Pentagon did. They interviewed the reporters that were at first on the scene and talked to them, and they had some of the camera crew go out there and film. There's a memorial there now, and they walked around, and so that got more coverage in the documentary than the Pentagon. So yeah, which is actually kind of interesting because this is kind of true too. I saw this article the other day. It said that the people of Shanksville, they feel left out of all the memorial stuff because everyone only talks about the Twin Towers and the Pentagon, and it's the fact one of the planes crashed there. They're usually left out. In fact, a lot of people don't... I don't even think a lot of people know the name of the place that it crashed. They just know, it went down somewhere. They might know it was in Pennsylvania, but they won't know, Shanksville, what's that? Not even the name of a real place? You're making that up. And it wasn't in the city. It was outside of Shanksville. So, yeah. But I read the article. I don't remember. That's sad. I don't remember. They said they feel left out and forgotten, and I forgot what the article, like, that's basically the sum of the article, like, summed up, is they feel left out of everything because they were part of it. There have been a few movies about 9/11, and the three main ones. There's World Trade Center, which one of the last episodes of the documentary was the actual people from that that movie. The McLaughlin, the officer, the one who was played by Nicolas Cage. I don't think they interviewed him, but they interviewed there were no McLaughlin and then another firefighter were the only two that survived from that group. And then there was an ex-Marine. I think his name was James Thomas. He was interviewed. His character was in the movie, but that was kind of controversial because he's black, and the actor they got to play him was white. And I saw an interview. I read an interview where, like, they explained why. They said, "Oh, we didn't know he was black." So you didn't even research your own character? It was Oliver Stone. So I mean, what do you expect? I mean, I think I pointed it out in another. Yeah, I think I did point it out recently in another episode, like the Doors and all that. Unless it wasn't an episode, I think I was talking to somebody. I was either talking to somebody or it was in an episode. I don't even know anymore. Oliver Stone doesn't really tell the truth in his stories, and he's the one that directed, or he either directed or wrote or produced or something, the World Trade Center movie. So, but I think for the most part, the storyline it matches up because I've seen the movie, and I remember most of the movie, and some of the survivors of that story and the people that are still alive told their story, and it pretty much was what I remembered from the movie. And what was that? Oh yeah, so that was one of the movies, but it wasn't the first. There was United 93. No, there was Flight 93. It was about the one that crashed outside of Shanksville. And that one I watched, and I didn't really like it too much. It seemed like a cheap rush production, and it probably was. And then shortly after that, there was United 93, which was a much better movie. I actually watched all three movies back to back, and my favorite of the three was United 93. Didn't really like the first two too much. And obviously there's a bunch of movies about 9/11 that aren't like based on true stories. There's that Robert Pattinson movie, Remember Me, which I don't remember. Okay, if it wasn't for that ending, that movie would have probably been forgotten because I've seen it, but I don't remember anything from it except for the ending. Where, like, again, I don't remember what the movie's about. I don't remember anything about it. Like, literally nothing. I don't remember anything about the story or anything. All of a sudden, like, this little girl's in school, and then the teacher is actually standing in front of the chalkboard, and she steps away, and it reveals the date is Tuesday, September 11th, 2001, and it shows Robert Pattinson at a window, and then, like, the camera pans away to reveal he's in he's in the world at the top of the World Trade Center, and it cuts to black, and then it comes back up at his funeral, and it's like, okay. That was abrupt, but that upset a lot of people. However, it was memorable. At least the movie might have been forgettable, but you're not going to forget that. In fact, I think that was a very controversial scene because it's brought up a lot in like lists of like most controversial movie scenes, and that was one of them. And another one was the original ending of the butterfly effect, which this is probably unpopular opinion. I think the that original darker ending of the butterfly effect is better. I won't get into that. I think my favorite movie about 9/11, or maybe not about 9/11, like fictional movie that has 9/11 ish thing. Nah, how do I want to word this? Okay, not movies about 9/11, because that would be, I only know of 3. There's World Trade Center, Flight 93, and United 93. United 93 is my favorite of those. But then there's movies like Remember Me that uses 9/11 and fictionalizes it. My favorite movie that does that is like has a fictional story about, it's not about 9/11, but it, like you find out at the end that it kind of is. It's Reign Over Me with Adam Sandler. It's actually probably my favorite movie of Adam Sandler's, and it is really good. If you haven't seen it, it's a very serious movie. It's like, it's not very serious. It's kind of like a sad movie. It's very sad. You hear Adam Sandler, you think, oh, that's a comedy. No, he does a lot of. He's a really good dramatic actor when he wants to be. He's more well known for like the Jack and Jills, which I won't get into that. But when he wants to be serious, he can really act. And Reign Over Me is probably his best example, one of them at least. You can tell, like, the story. I forgot the guy's name. I haven't seen it in a long time. He actually, I'm gonna see if this is. I'm gonna watch this. Not right now, obviously. I'm gonna use Yidio to see if Reign Over Me is streaming anywhere. Reign Over Me. And let's see, 2007. It is on Hulu with the Stars subscription. Apple TV Plus Stars subscription, and Stars. You can also rent it on Google Play, Amazon, and Vudu. I do not want to do that. Anyway, he's his character. He's got a lot of like emotional problems. You can tell, like he's. I better look it up the Wikipedia. Huh? Okay. Reign Over Me. There we go. It's a buddy drama film written by Mike Binder, and produced by his brother Jack Binder. Stars Adam Sandler, Don Cheadle, Jada Pinkett Smith, Liv Tyler, Donald Sutherland. It's distributed by Columbia. Yeah, okay. His name is Charlie Feynman, Dr. Charlie Feynman, and Don Cheadle is Dr. Alan Johnson, not Jackson. Let's see. His okay. At the end, basically, you find out that his wife and 2 daughters. Just his daughters. They died on 9/11 and kind of messed him up. And the movie, like the whole movie, he's like really depressed, and you find out at the end why. Unless it's at the beginning, because it starts off the plot in the Wikipedia article says, when the Twin Towers went down in 2001, Charlie Feynman lost everything important in his life. So the plot on the Wikipedia starts with that, and I remember it. It's actually, I love the way it happens in the movie, because like what I remember, the whole movie, you're like, what's wrong with him? What's wrong with him? What's wrong with him? And the whole movie, they're like, his friends and everyone around him are like, you need to open up. You need to open up. You need to open up. And at the end, like, he's like, there's this girl that he becomes close to, and he sits, like, they're sitting down in like the therapist's office, and he just starts telling her, and it is like a flashback to like them alive, like in the house, and it was like really sad. And yeah, of course, I haven't seen it since 2009, so I might have missed at the beginning where you probably knew all along. I don't know. I do need to see it again because actually, you know what? Since I love it so much, instead of streaming it, I'm gonna reign over me Blu-ray. It is $7. I don't have a Blu-ray player. Never mind. Yeah. Got rid of my consoles, so there goes my way of watching movies in disc form. I can still stream on my laptop and my phone. I don't like how laptops don't have the disc drive anymore. At least the ones I have had. This is my second laptop ever. My first one was actually, I only had it very briefly. In 2014, someone sold me a Linux laptop. And I did not like it because I don't like Linux. It did not have a disk drive. And then this one doesn't have a disk drive. Emery has a laptop. It doesn't have a disk drive. I don't know any laptop, anybody I know that has a disk drive. My last computer didn't have a disk drive. Like, what is wrong with disk drives? They're useful. And I have friends that are like into like computers and tech savvy and stuff, and they're like, "Oh, you don't need a disk drive anymore. You can just download everything." It's like, that's besides the point, because now I can't buy Blu-rays. And I saw at the thrift store when I was in Ohio, they had Skyrim on PC for $5. I could have bought it, but I couldn't because it's a disc and I don't have a disk drive. But then when I got home, I remembered, oh yeah, I already own Skyrim on Steam. Which, I didn't tell my friend that because he would have been like, see? But point remains, don't get rid of disk drives because they're still useful. Anyway, what was I talking? Oh yeah, right. 9/11. I don't know what else there. I was like, sure there was more. I was gonna. No, I don't remember what I was going to say. There was a lot more, because like I said, I didn't know exactly like how I was gonna structure this, what I was gonna talk about, but I did have kind of like a general idea. I knew I was gonna tell like my 9/11 story. I wasn't going to touch the conspiracy theories, and that was the first thing I talked about. I was like, leave that out of it. Yeah, that didn't go as planned. Like, I was kind of skeptical about doing this episode because I know a lot of people, like, it's a very touchy subject with a lot of people for obvious reasons. But like, I still wanted to do an episode. I mean, at least I didn't do my conspiracy episodes today. Like, oh yeah, in honor of 9/11, here's, yeah. I'll do that later on. That'll be, yeah. But I did remember something. After I posted my last episode, I remembered that the 26th of this month, September 26th, 2021, will be the 1 year birthday of the podcast, because I uploaded my first episode that day last year, my introduction episode. And yeah, I still don't know what I'm going to do on that day. Because like, I wasn't thinking that far ahead. I was just thinking, oh, post episodes. And, but then, like, if I had been constantly posting uploads this whole time, episodes, I probably would have been thinking about that. But I haven't really been thinking about the podcast the last couple months because I've been more focused on, life and stuff and such. But I'm planning on doing something. I currently don't have anything planned. I'm wanting to maybe have a guest on or something, but I don't know. It would have to be somebody I haven't had on before. So, like, I've only had 3 guests. Sarah, who I don't live near anymore, was my first guest, Christmas Eve. We were coworkers we're still really good friends. And there was Emery, who's been my guest like 3 or 4 times. And so they're definitely out because I don't want to do the same one for that episode. And then Michaela, which she's busy. I already it takes her like a week to respond to messages. Sometimes she responds right away, which isn't very often. But actually, let's see. Is she even online? I haven't messaged her since yesterday. And yeah. So my last 2 messages, she did see and she reacted to them, but she didn't respond. And I messaged her yesterday, and she did a heart reaction. So, so those 3, those have been my only guests so far. So they're out for that episode. So what I want to do is have like an actual podcaster be my guest. I don't know the rest. I don't know about the rest. But I don't know anybody that would. I have a few ideas of who might agree to it, but it's kind of short notice at this point because it's only actually, how long is it? How long until that day? It is 3 weeks and 1 day, which sounds like it's not that long. It sounds like a long time, but yeah. I know a lot of these I know a lot of these other podcasters, they have busy lives. They're scheduled out months in advance. So, yeah. There have been times in the past when I have asked if someone wanted to come and be a guest on here, and they were like, "Oh, sorry, I'm already scheduled out for the next 6 months." And I was like, "Oh." So 3 weeks doesn't sound like a lot, but it sounds like a lot, but it's last minute on scheduling terms. I, on the other hand, don't plan that far ahead unless it's something like, I had a feeling I was going to do something for 9/11. I want to do something like that. And again, I forgot about the anniversary, so I didn't think about that. But had I thought of it, I would have tried to plan ahead and been like, "Hey, I want to do something that day," and then start asking around months and months ago. Oh. I could probably do a best of clip show, but that would basically just be me re-uploading the music therapy episode. I think that one's probably my favorite episode that I've done because I'm in it least. That's the episode I'm in the least. It was mostly Michaela and Emery talking. When I went to edit, I didn't have to hear my voice, so I was like, "Yes, I love this episode." And also the topics that they talked about were actually really good. I really liked that episode. I've actually listened to it. I edited it and I posted it, and then I actually listened to it, which I never do that on my episode. I never listen to my own episodes, but I listened to that one. I got way off topic. This is an episode I didn't want to go off topic on because, sensitive subjects and stuff. Oh, about it being a sensitive subject, I know, when it comes to comedy, there's usually, there's things you shouldn't joke about. Like, I don't find rape jokes funny, and like jokes about like pedophilia. I don't find those kind of jokes funny, and like raunchy humor. Like, I don't like Dane Cook's humor. Like, if you have to be raunchy to be funny, you're not really funny. That's my opinion. And then there are, but then there's like this gray area where like there's things that probably shouldn't be joked about, but like you do anyway. Like, I do make 9/11 jokes, but not. Okay, there's certain 9/11 jokes that I don't know. It's like, there's another topic I was like, I'm not going to talk about that. And hey, look at me, I'm talking about it. Like, okay, perfect example. Okay, so my friend Mark and I should have him be my guest that day because we already talked about it. Anyway, he wanted to be a guest, and I was like, hey, that's great. We've known each other since 2000. I mean, since 1999. My only friend I've known since the 90s. I'm still friends with. But anyway, we were sharing Titanic memes on one of my posts years ago, and it was Mark and me, and then a third person, one of our friends, and like we were just commenting back and forth, like sharing Titanic memes. But then one of us, it was either Mark or me, I can't remember who, shared a 9/11 meme. And then the third person was like, that's not funny, that's offensive, people died. They also died on Titanic. I don't know if you know this, but yeah. In fact, actually, I don't know who died. Okay, let's see. Hey, Google, how many people died on 9/11?
The September 11th attack's number of deaths is 2,996.
Okay. Let's say 3,000 because it's like 4 short of that. Hey, Google. Hey, Google. Hey, Google. How many people died on Titanic?
1,500.
Oh.
According to History.com, the RMS Titanic.
I don't care. Okay, never mind. I was going to say, well, more people died on Titanic than on 9/11. But yeah, that's actually besides the point. But yeah, I don't know if it's because like 9/11 was more recent, but yeah, there. Okay, so I've always been a fan of offensive humor, like to an extent, like again, like I'll post 9/11 memes, but then like someone makes a joke about Sandy Hook, and I'm like, whoa. So, like, less people died at Sandy Hook, so like I guess like the amount of deaths don't matter. It's like the subject matter, like, yeah. But then like there's a trilogy of Dale Earnhardt jokes that I tell, and I actually got punched once because apparently people are still very, very I don't know the right word for it, because I was like very touchy about the subject, about Dale Earnhardt, because I mean there's a lot of people that are fans of him, and like obviously I'm not going to tell the jokes here. They're kind of mean, not to him. It's just okay, like I wasn't really a fan of Dale Earnhardt. It's not like I hate him or anything. It's I actually got the jokes from like an actual comedian. So like they're not my jokes. They're just someone who's actually funny came up with them, and I'm just like, hey. But then like at the same time, like if somebody, like I saw somebody making like the same kind of jokes about Dimebag Darrell, and I got upset. So like it I don't know. I guess it depends on who the jokes are towards. Like, I'll give a good example of. I had kind of like a karma moment a few years ago when Chris Cornell died. Like I wasn't like a huge fan, but like I was a huge fan of Audio Slave, and I liked him. Like he was very talented. I liked him, but like I wasn't like a huge fan. Like I did like him, just not like mega fan type thing. So somebody said, oh, did you listen to the new Justin Bieber album? Chris Cornell did, because he hung himself. And I thought that was hilarious. And I started telling people that. They're like, oh, dude. Some people would be like, oh, that's not funny. And some people would laugh. But then, later that year, Chester Bennington killed himself by hanging himself. And someone made that same joke. And I was like, dude, no. That's not funny. And I was like, wait, I did the same thing with Chris Cornell. So it's like, comedy subjective? I don't know. Because, like, I like offensive humor to an extent, I guess. Like, there are... I was going to say, there are things you shouldn't joke about, but then it's like, what are those things? Because, like, I made the same joke about Chris Cornell that I got upset with someone making about Chester Bennington. So, no more joking for anybody ever, because someone's going to get offended by something. So, yeah. I think another perfect example of that topic is when Saturday Night Live actually went back on the air after 9/11. I think they were actually supposed to have their season premiere like that Saturday. Obviously, they had to push it back. But when they finally did their season premiere that season, they had Rudy Giuliani on, who was the mayor. I think he hosted, but he was on like in the cold open. Lorne Michaels asked him, "Is it okay to be funny?" And Giuliani jokingly said, "Why start now?" Yeah. But yeah, like, comedy is a coping mechanism, I heard. Like, I've heard people say, people a lot smarter than me, damn, Jackie, that could be anyone, say that, like, comedy is a very important coping mechanism. Like, people joke about serious topics because it's, it's better to laugh about something than cry about it. So, yeah, that's my justification for 9/11 jokes. Probably not the best, but hey, it's a thing. And I will say this: I make less offensive jokes than I used to. I used to be into the whole like shock humor thing, and I would go like back in high school. I'd like go over the top just to get a reaction, and now I don't really do that as much anymore. So I don't even really do like 9/11 memes as much. It's just mostly like with Mark, like him and I like we share that stuff with each other because that's the kind of humor we're into. I'll see about. Actually, hang on. I'm going to send him an audio message. He's probably asleep. It's 2 hours difference between here and there. All right. Hey, I'm sending you an audio message, and you're probably wondering why I'm sending you an audio message. Well, you're now officially part of this episode. I'm actually recording my episode on my 9/11 episode right now, and you're probably wondering why I'm messaging you while doing this. You know how you were talking about wanting to do an episode together? Hey, my 1 year episode is coming up on the 26th. Would you want to be a guest for my 1 year episode, not my 1 year long episode. That would be a really long episode. And yes, all of this is not only being recorded on Facebook, but on my podcast too. So, the world is going to hear this. By the world, I mean the 3 people that'll likely hear this. And it's sent. Oh wait, he was on 7 minutes ago. So, he might see it, I don't know. I might be able to, show his response on here. Anyway, what's more to say about 9/11 than that I haven't already said? I don't know. I don't even, because I keep having to stop and start recording again. I don't know how long this episode's been going on for. This specific recording has been on for 9 minutes and 50 seconds. So, I don't know. I think I talked for at least half an hour for the last recording. So this might be over an hour. I don't know. I honestly don't know. And now it's been over 10 minutes for this recording specifically. So, for now, I'm going to end this episode here. I'm thinking at some point I am going to do a completely serious episode. I thought this was going to be my completely serious episode, and that kind of, the namesake of the show kind of went off into movies and other stuff. But, probably not going to post this until tomorrow. It's currently the night of the 10th. It's currently 9:46 p.m. And when I post this, I want the timestamp and everything to show September 11th. So I might not post this until tomorrow, just so that whenever you're scrolling through, it says the episode's called 9/11, posted on 9/11. Or I might wait until after. No, wait till midnight. No, because it still won't be 9/11 everywhere. Yeah, I'll probably just wait till morning. I don't know. I'll post it when I post it. As for now, I will end this here. Have a good.